learn about my favorite topic. But first, let's look at today's metaphor. Today's metaphor is about campfires. And as you can see here, a famous artist called Laurie Anderson said, technology is the campfire around which we tell stories. And this is so true. But here we will say charts is the campfire around which you tell your stories. Yes, good. So, this chapter is about how to use maps for teamwork, and this is related to the group IQ. So, how can you use maps, visuals, charts for teamwork? And we will see three cases. First one is Wordle maps. Then we will see Toyota's A3 PDCA, and then we will see the business canvas. So, let's start with Wordle maps. Probably Wordle maps has been the biggest innovation in the last 10 years, after or even before the business canvas model of Alexander Osterwalder. Wordle maps was invented by a guy that lives in London. His name is Simon Wordley, and they organize every year map camp in London, and I totally recommend you assist and join this map camp if you're in London. So what is a Wordle map? A Wordle map maps the value chain of a business on a vertical axis, but also looks at the commoditization trend of each component of your value chain. For example, if I ask you to place a car in the x-axis, where would you place a car today? I give you 5 seconds. Well, at the beginning of the century, there were like 400 car companies. So car was in its genesis. And this is typical when you have a genesis product, you have lots of companies and there's no standards of cars. So at the beginning, cars were very different in shape and price as well, mostly for the luxury market. Then in the 50s, you had the custom built cars, and then came Ford Model T, which kind of industrialized and commoditized the car. And today, if you think about the car, we can say that the car is between here and here because there is basically no difference between cars. They're pretty reliable. They don't break down as in the 80s. They're pretty reliable. They drive very well, all of them. If we blindfold a person and we put them inside a Kia or an Audi, they will not be able to tell us where they are because Kia and Audi source the same components, have the same engineers. So it's pretty commoditized these days. Make sense? So Genesis, custom built products, when you have a product rental and when you have a commodity. So electricity, water, these are commodities today, but they were not commodities 200 years ago. Good. Right, so here's another Wordle map, and this is a more complex one. And this is the example that Simon Wardley uses in his book, which is freely available on the internet. And for a website he used to work with, which name was Photango. It was a photo sharing website. So here you can see all the components, starting by what do you need to make a website work? Well, you need electricity power, you need compute units, you need a data center, you need a software platform, you need a CRM, you need a website, you need a payment gateway, you need an online photo storage, and an online manipulation tool. And those are the components of the web app that was Photango. And so look here, there's some components which are closer to commodity than other components. And so those are opportunities to innovate the business model. And here you can decide, for example, whether you should outsource this part of the value chain to some company in India, or whether to invest more, or whether to protect it with patents, or whether to attack a competitor in a weak point. If you look at a car, for example, and we explode its components, we could, in theory, map the value chain or map a car in a worthy map. So if we do that, we'll have a cloud of points and things. But basically, we will end up with a supply chain which is fairly standardized these days, and internal combustion engine and parts which are mostly standardized because uh, the suppliers are the same for Toyota than they are for Volkswagen. So engine parts, supply chain, quite standardized thing. And then what else do we have? We have software like the electronic control unit, the navigation software, which most of the time is outsourced to companies like Denso, Toyota, and Panasonic. Then you have the car assembly, and then you have a distribution network, the sales shops, yes. And then you have the car. And if you unite all these components, more or less, you have mapped the value chain of a car. And this is a great exercise to have a discussion of whether to outsource things, whether the value chain is improvable, or where to innovate, or where are the weak points of the competition. So here's your first exercise. I would ask you to map the Tesla company. How would it look like? So this is the value map of a normal car, but how would a Tesla car or a Tesla product look like? So for example, if we have a Tesla, the first thing that has changed is that we have no engine here, right? So we have no engine, but we have a thing called the battery pack. And we know that Tesla makes its own battery packs. They have a lot of IP protecting the battery packs, and that this is a fairly new thing. Nobody makes battery packs water-cooled and as safe as Tesla has managed to do. So the battery pack today is a custom built thing. It's not a commodity yet. No other companies have the Tesla battery pack available to them, right? We know that Elon Musk wants to move this here, commoditizing this with the gigafactories, and probably maybe they will sell battery packs to other companies. But at the moment, we are here in 2020. Another big difference is that the typical distribution network is not anymore in Tesla, right? So Tesla owns its own shops, right? And the Tesla shop experience is very different from the typical distribution network of a normal car company. So that's a big difference. And we know that the Tesla shop looks like an Apple shop. So it's while the other car companies rely on local distributors and entrepreneurs to distribute the cars, Tesla has a vertically integrated system. And because of that, we could say, well, the Tesla shop is not here. However, if you consider that they just copied Apple when maybe you can put it here like it's a commodity. It depends on you. There's no right or wrong in these maps, but the point is that you can have a very good discussion, and by visualizing this, the team can have ideas to innovate the value chain. Another big difference with Tesla, so we saw that, is that they're very strong in the software, and the software is not like the normal car companies. It's so normal car companies outsource the software to other companies, like Toyota outsources to Denso, Nissan outsources to Denso. And this software is very different from the others because it enables self-driving, right? So self-driving would be a very specific and new feature. So it could be placed here, for example, and it's very visible to the user. So it's here. So that's a very interesting thing. Or you can say, well, no, self-driving is going to be or is already a commodity because Tesla has commoditized self-driving because it's in every Tesla car, and they will probably license this to everybody soon. If that's your point of view, then you would place self-driving here as a commodity, though the software is totally unique and proprietary and nobody has the ability to replicate the quality of the self-driving. Another interesting idea is the new things that Tesla has incorporated in the value chain. And to me, the big dashboard is one of them, and internet on in the car is another big thing that the other makers do not have. And it's interesting to know that internet is a commodity. They just put a SIM card in the car and that's it, free Wi-Fi in the car. And that the big dashboard, well, when Tesla started, the big dashboard, it was not a normal thing in cars. So they just took advantage of the standards of the PC industry, LCD industry from Taiwan. So they took that commodity from the PC and they bring it into the car. So that was a first, but the dashboard is a commodity. And it's a huge innovation, but with a commodity, which is amazing. So these are two big differences I see as well with the normal companies. So this is an example of Tesla. And as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities. And once you visualize this, it's so much easier to have clarity on where are the innovations, right? And the last thing is what Simon Worley calls attack points. And these, as you know, every technology, every component in your value chain is subjected to the commoditization trend. And this means that battery packs are special today. There's a lot of know-how, but when the patents expire and as people learn how to do battery packs, they will not be here anymore. They will be here, and this is good because they become cheaper. There are ways, it may be in the interest of a company to accelerate this process or to stop it. You can stop this process with patents, for example, or you can accelerate it by licensing or opening factories in China or opening your patent portfolio like Tesla has done. So clearly Tesla is interested in moving this towards the right side for their own strategic reasons, right? So that's very interesting. And here comes the next exercise for you. Second and last exercise, can you map Spotify in the year 2011 when they were starting in a Worldly map? And can you tell me from the map if, imagine I'm the manager of Spotify, if I should outsource the cloud service to some third party like Google or Amazon, or keep it in-house? So you have 5 minutes to do this. I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we map Spotify, this is more or less what I would come up with. At the bottom, you have a commodity. You have in 2011, cloud hosting was not a commodity like it is today. There was no AWS console. And so two of the big things for Spotify is that they were managing their own cloud hosting. So the music would appear quickly in your app. So that's one thing. And you could place cloud hosting 2011 around here. The other innovation they did is royalties. They managed to not being sued by the record labels. And another interesting thing they have is a recommender engine, which nobody has been able to replicate. So the recommended engine of Spotify is basically the best, and this you can see this because Apple is unable to replicate this user experience. So it's still here, and it was here, and still here. And then they have an app, which is quite good, but you could pay someone to do an app that looks like Spotify, right? And so these are the user needs, music that I like, the app, and this is connected. All this is connected. Now, imagine you're in 2011 and you can use this map to decide whether you should outsource or not cloud hosting. So what should you do? So if you know that there's this commoditization trend and you believe that cloud technology will become a commodity as it has happened today, then you could decide that, well, instead of focusing or dividing your resources and engineers into building a recommended engine that is good and cloud hosting, maybe you could just outsource cloud hosting as it happened and say, okay, maybe it's a bit expensive in 2011, but we know that after 2018 it's going to be cheap, and then we don't want to end up with with a huge in-house know-how, because we will never be cloud hosting will never be a commodity for us, not commodity, a core competency for us. So outsourcing cloud hosting was a very good decision, and through Worldly Maps you can quickly see that, yeah, you probably should outsource it because it's close to becoming a commodity. So it's actually what happened, and very clearly signal to outsource. Whereas the recommended engine, you could have maybe postulate or hypothesize that maybe they should be outsourced as well, but they didn't outsource that, and still they're way ahead of the competition in recommending engine. So the music recommendation system. Right, so this is it. There's a lot more to learn about Worldly Maps, and it would take a full course on it. And there are full courses on Worldly Maps. And if you're interested, just Google Worldly Maps, and he have very good OSCON talk, and he put his book online for free in this place, yeah, in Medium. All right.